T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Are you a woman in need of wisdom? Do you sometimes battle with separating who you are now versus who you feel like you ought to be? Do you question God's plan for your life? Is there a sense of uncertainty in the areas of choosing healthy relationships? Hi, I'm Nadira, your life and impact coach. In becoming a woman of Proverbs, it is my desire to help you grow into the woman that God has designed you to be. We offer short videos with moments of wisdom for any circumstance using the Word of God. No matter what it is, we are here for you. Make sure you download the app today.
Hello. Welcome to Sisterhood Check-In. I am Nadira Lewis, your inspirational life and mentality coach, and I am excited that you have taken time to join us today. I am excited to introduce my special guest, my sister-in-law, Shalinda Mayner, as we go into discussing some of the things that God has done in her life. So tune in, make sure that you guys do a watch party, share it with, like and share with all of your friends. You're in for a treat tonight. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and introduce Shalinda Mayner. Hi, Lynn. How are you?
Hey, hello, everyone. How you doing?
Good.
How you doing, Nadira?
I'm doing good. You know, it took us a little minute to get things going, but, you know, we keep pushing through because no matter what's going on, you know, God is always going to make things, as long as we just stay, you know, persistent, it'll, you know, things will always work out for us. So
yes.
I'm glad you actually took the time to join our show today. I'm excited to hear about your life and the things that God has done for you. So give us a little bit of a background about who you are, and before you get into your life story, tell us a little bit about Shalinda.
Well, I'm a simple person. I enjoy the simple things: reading, really writing, creative writing, and I am a woman of God always first. I have three children. I have 2 boys and a girl, and I have a lovely husband, Tim. I guess some would consider us newlyweds. We've only been married since 2016, but it's been a journey, and it's been a good journey. And I'm the youngest of my family, so I have that mentality of always being considered the baby. So you're always trying to come out of that mode of, you know, being watched over to now having to mature a little bit and be a grown person in your own spot oftentimes. But that's really a little bit about me. I'm from New Jersey. I spent a little time in Florida, but I'm back in New Jersey. And that's really it.
So I was looking at your website, and you had some pretty interesting things that were there, where you were talking about some of the things that you do to help other women overcome different mindsets, which is pretty awesome, because a lot of people don't realize that a lot of the things that we go through, we can get through them a lot faster if we change our perspective about how we view the things that we go through. So talk to us about some of the things that you want, that the things that God has put in your heart for you to be able to share with other women when it comes to their mindset.
Well, on my website, I talk about me focusing on women who've gone through some trauma, and really trying to focus on young girls who probably haven't gone through that trauma, but can learn from the trauma that I've gone through to give them some wisdom on how to see certain signs in situations, whether it's with their friends or with men. And even just to be able to go inward into yourself to be able to have certain characteristics about yourself so you can foresee certain things that may happen. For me, uh, I am a survivor of sexual incest at the hands of my godbrothers, and also abuse for a few years from my son's dad. And in that time, and in both times, one, the incest was from the ages 9 through 16. And with that was also not only sexual abuse, but it was physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse. And going through that at an early age, 9 years old through 16, at 9, you can't really understand what's happening because I didn't know. I lived a sheltered life. So I didn't know what the details of sex was at 9, believe it or not. So when this started happening to me, I was totally confused as to is this right? Is this wrong? It was my god brothers. It was weird. It was just odd for me. But as I grew older and knew, I was afraid and I was hurt because I'm in a position as a child to make a choice of whether I will stop this and possibly never see my family again because they were my God family I was living with,
Mm-hmm.
or just tell the immediate adult in my life to maybe get them to stop it and move on. But that's a lot at 9 to try and figure out. And as I grew older, when you begin to go through things, that's when you really see the trauma. Because when you're starting to live in a life of abuse, you get used to it. And naturally your mind
Mm-hmm.
will begin to adjust you to that situation because we are survivors, no matter what the situation is.
Right.
It's when you come out of it
Mm-hmm.
when you really begin to feel that trauma. And sometimes you don't even know because you start to see habitual behavior from you and those that you attract. So for me, thank God, once I was able to come out of that, I had therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And through that therapy, I had consistent reinforcement telling me, no, this isn't your fault. No, there was nothing that you did. You were a child, etc., etc. But it creeps into you. It creeps in to say, why me? Two God brothers? Did I do something? So
Right.
you have self blame. And women, men, people that go through things, believe it or not, there's times that we will say, what did I do wrong? And when you begin to allow that to creep in, your confidence level can go down. You
Absolutely.
will feel like you are at fault and you are attracting these people. And even people will begin to tell you these things. Well, maybe it's something you're doing. So we have to guard ourselves when you've gone through trauma and when you're coming out of it, because if you don't, this is when you're at your most vulnerable state. So through the therapy, as I got older, God was always in me. God never let me hate. Even after the abuse stopped and we were going through court and people were saying how they wish that these men were dead, how they wish that this would happen to them and how they should be under the jail. These were my brothers still. I love them. That's who I grew up with. I couldn't feel that. Even though I was angry with them and even though I hated what they did, I didn't hate them. And I just thank God for having a forgiving heart, a naturally forgiving heart,
Mm-hmm.
because if without it, I would hold on to that anger. I would hold on to resentment. I would hold on to why did you do this to me? As opposed to allowing God to guide my heart and let Him work through me to build that resistance that He gave me out of that situation. So I try to, when I speak, I try to get people to, yes, you've gone through something, you're coming out of it. Now it's time to do the work of being resilient. Now it's time to not focus and give the energy back to those that did anything to you. Why? Because you're still here and standing strong. You're still here, able to smile and laugh with your family and your friends. That's not happening anymore. So don't let it keep pulling you back. It's a new perspective, it's a new day. And pray and ask God, get me through this pain. Don't allow me to have a heart that is not forgiving. It's not your job not to forgive, right? If God can forgive us, or we can forgive those that trespass against us, right? Because when you do, God will only bless you. He will bless you with a clean mind, a clean heart, so you can begin to do the work to get through that trauma that you've gone through.
That's pretty deep. At the age of 9, or should I ask, at what age did you realize that? Because you said it went from 9 to 16. At what age did you determine, or at what point in your state of mind did you say there's something wrong about this? Because at 9, you're right, you don't really know exactly. You know, if you don't really know about sex, you kind of just go with the flow. At what age? And I guess it's a two-part question. At what age and at what moment did you say, okay, you know what, I need to tell somebody about this?
It always felt wrong. It always felt weird, but it was not, I didn't really know it was truly wrong until I began to see the habits of secrecy.
Mm.
When this isn't happening at a normal time, when it's only happening with us, as children, when something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But because you're so trusting to the adults in your life,
Mm-hmm.
you don't believe that is wrong. It's like, this doesn't feel good, but it's happening, and that's just it. It takes maturity for you to really know um, that it's truly wrong. So at 9 years old, that's not 5, that's not 6. I was 9. I was in what, 5th grade?
Mm-hmm.
So it goes to show you where my mentality was. I didn't, I wasn't, it was totally different. Like today, 9-year-olds are like in the know.
Yeah.
It's taught to you in school when someone does something to you is wrong. Back then it wasn't, and I'm not that old,
Yeah.
but it has been a change in time. That stuff wasn't talked about. It definitely wasn't
Right.
taught in school.
Right.
So I had no idea. But I believe I realized that I need to tell someone um, around maybe in the 4th grade, 5th grade, when they start to teach you about when you might get your menstrual period.
Mm.
And when you get your menstrual, you can get pregnant. And if you're having sex, then you can have a baby. That's when I said, oh, wow, I'm there. And even though I didn't have my period, I didn't know, you know, I
Yeah.
thought it was really important that I now say something. Um, so I did at around 11 years old.
Gotcha. How has that experience affected you emotionally, and how has it affected your relationships with men?
Emotionally, it took me through the ringer. Growing up, I battled depression. Um, I was just on a mission to die. I just didn't want to be in this world. I was truly an empath where everything that happened in society,
Mm-hmm.
around me, close, I felt everyone's pain and it was unbearable for me. Um,
Mm.
so I just kept thinking, I don't want to be in a world like this. And I would just go on this mission to die. And that was the worst time of my life. I've always been uh, a spiritual woman. Um, I grew up in the church, so I knew that uh, that was wrong. But my emotions were so high, and they took over me that I just didn't care. I didn't want to be here. But as I grew older and I got through therapy, um, that slowed down. I was able to get help. And then as I grew in relationships with men, um, it definitely it could be a gift and a curse. It definitely guarded me. It to this day, I'm vulnerable. I'm married, so I'm vulnerable, but I definitely wait for that bottom to drop out. I definitely will be able to love and trust, but only to a certain degree. So um, I have to make a conscious effort to know that it's not just all men that are doing this, and you have to be fair to them. But it definitely has guarded me a bit.
Yeah, I definitely understand how that feels. It definitely affects you in ways that sometimes you don't even think that it even affects you, because you go on with life, you move on, and you think, I'm past this, and then something triggers,
Yes.
triggers that particular. It's almost like
Mhm.
you start to, somebody says something, and all of a sudden it sets you back. Like I remember one time I was in Walmart, and I was in Walmart for like 2 hours, and I went into a panic mode just for being in Walmart for 2 hours. And so certain things would trigger. You don't even know that it's really affecting you until
Right.
years go by. It wasn't even until I got into my second marriage that I realized that it affected me that long.
Right.
So how has it, I know you have a daughter, Miss Rosie.
Hmm.
How has that caused you? Because I know with me, Preecia's a lot older now, so she's at an age where she can, protect herself. I'm a little bit more protective towards Bella Joy and McKinley now, because I know that it can happen at any time, at any place. I remember my mom was dating somebody, and I remember the guy that she was dating was accused of the exact same thing. And I worked like really hard to make sure, you know, that I protected her, protected Precia, made sure that, that nothing happened, because stuff like this happen. And you're right, when we're younger it's not talked about, because it's almost like you ever seen that TV show by TD Jakes, A Woman Thou Art Loose, and
Yeah.
how she was going through and everybody was considered to be uncle, everybody that came to the house and stuff like that. You don't really know, what I'm saying. You're young, you just is. And a lot of them, it wasn't talked about. So now we're in an age where kids can, there's support systems in place to say, hey, when you go to school, you let mommy know if this happens. If you go over here and spend the night, you let mommy know. They're a little bit more they're a little bit more equipped, should I say now. And it's a little bit more, it's like we're more open now to kind
Yeah.
of talk about it. So,
Absolutely.
which is why I'm glad for the type of like for social media, and I'm
Hmm.
happy for different avenues that God has allowed to be there, to help us to kind of get the word out and talk about our experiences, because we don't know who's going through what. We don't know what people are dealing with in their homes. It does affect us in ways sometimes that we don't even realize. And I think it's important with you talking about counseling, because you need somebody to help you to get through, the mindset. You didn't talk about what that was like when you went to therapy. Did you feel like the therapy helped you? Did you feel like, you know, as a teenager, did you feel like, oh, this is another adult? How did you feel about going to therapy? Because Black people mainly, we don't like to go to therapy,
Yeah.
because we think there's a stigmatism against therapy.
Yeah.
It's okay to talk to, and I'm not saying every, you have to do your research, and you have to make sure, that whoever it is that, that's actually doing the therapy, that they're equipped, and and that's why you research, and you go through different people to find what's best for you. How was that for you as a teenager going through therapy, being able to open up again after everything had happened?
Uh, it was. It was fine. It was one of those things where I I had no choice. Um, like once it happened, once my mom, my biological mother, found out, she just automatically put me in there. And when I went, um, I remember I'll never forget her name. Her name was Ann Cuff. She was my therapist for years.
Mm-hmm.
And Ann used to just, I didn't feel like everyone else. Everyone kept saying it's not your fault. I didn't feel like it was my fault. So
Yeah.
at first, I really couldn't relate to what Anne was saying because she just felt the need to keep saying that.
Mm-hmm.
But I assume now I know that she said it because eventually those feelings would creep in. And when I did feel that way, I do remember her saying that to me. Therapy is a necessity. I still go to therapy um, because you need it. You need someone to help you sort out all of these feelings that come up every day, just in motherhood,
Mm-hmm.
living life at work, society. It can get you down. So
Yeah.
therapy is really important to get sisters, friends, family. They'll listen and they will also try their best to be that support for you. But
Mm-hmm.
a therapist is unbiased. A therapist listens and they can provide you with guidance as to where those feelings are coming from and help you sort them out.
That's really good. Well, we're gonna take a quick because we're gonna talk about the next part. We're gonna take a quick break to gather our thoughts together, and in our next segment, I'm gonna talk about your relationship. You said on your website that you were in an abusive relationship, and I want you to kind of talk to, because there may be somebody that's listening that may be in an abusive relationship, or it could be a teenager, it can be a young person, even sometimes older people are in abusive relationships. So I want you to talk to us about your experiences. So before we do that, let's take a quick break and we'll see you in a few seconds. All
All
right.
right? Yes.
All right, we are back with our special guest, Shalinda Maynard, as she talked to us about her life. And she's doing so much. God is doing so many amazing things with her on her website. She is a survivor of abuse. She is a motivational speaker. She speaks. So if you guys, right now, she's doing virtual events. So if you guys need her to come and talk to whatever your event is, she is definitely open to any type of virtual events. You can also go to her website, ShalindaMaynard.com, and just check out her website, see the type of different services that she's offered. You'll be able to hear a testimony there a little bit more in depth also. But back to our topic. I don't think a lot of people understand. It takes a lot of strength and
Mhm.
courage to open up vulnerable areas of your life that you haven't yet exposed. And it takes a breather, it takes time to kind of pull yourself together and get up the strength to relive those different events to be able to talk about it. But the good thing about it is, once God gives you the victory over it,
Yeah.
then you can be able to, even though it's like, you know, it's also it's like that victory comes in, you get that second win, and you like, but I went through this, I got through this. God has done some amazing things. You're married with 3 beautiful kids. You're doing all kinds of stuff. Talk to us before we talk about what you're doing now. Talk to us about your relationship. You said you were in an abusive relationship. How did it start for you? Because some women don't think that, and the reason why I say that, because some women, some things they don't think is abusive. Sometimes you get used to seeing a certain behavior, or you get, I know for me, you look at other couples and you think, oh, well, everybody goes through things, everybody deals with things, this is normal, but until God reveals a new normal to you, and then you start to realize, wait a minute, this isn't normal. Talk to us about your relationship and how did it start?
Well, the man that abused me was my son's dad, but I was married before my son's dad, and I knew immediately what wasn't right, because I came from a great marriage with a man that treated me well. I mean, we got divorced, but it definitely wasn't from abuse.
Right.
When I met him, the first sign was the first day. And women, when you see it, when you feel it, then pay attention to it.
Yes.
It was the first day when we went out on a date. He didn't want me to leave him, and I felt good, but I also felt uncomfortable. I knew something wasn't right there, and he said to me, let's go to dinner, let's go out. And then he invited me back to his house, and I knew him through a friend, so I felt comfortable enough to go. So we just stayed up, we watched TV. That was it, just casual conversation. But in my head, I'm like, gosh, I really want to go home now. It's like 1:00. I'm go home. He's like, no, just stay a few more minutes. And before you know, it was like 3 a.m. that I was going home. So right then and there, I should have known. I was 27 at the time. Right then and there, I should have known that a man that is willing to keep me out and let me travel home at this hour is looking out for his own satisfaction, whether it is for me to just spend more time with him or be in my presence or whatever. He wasn't thinking about me. So it was that day. That was the first moment of control. And I fed that control because of my personality. I'm a nurturer. I'm a giver. Kelvin would like to talk. So I can pause here and.
So we have a few comments. Hope wanted to say hello. Hello, Hope. How are you? We also got a message from Patricia. Patricia is from New Jersey. She said, hello. Hi, Pat. And Kelvin said that he wants to talk about his own relationship.
Yes.
Thank you for your comments. Go ahead, Shalinda.
Oh, so as the time went on, we grew closer. I wound up moving in with him. He had a daughter. He had a niece that he was raising, and he was looking for someone to be a mom. But I was not prepared for that. I was young. I had no children. I was living my best life at that time. And I had no idea of how to be a mom to anyone. So to be forced into that, I just was a fish out of water. And he really let me know that. He would say, oh, well, if you're going to be a mom to her, then you need to be like this. You need to act like this. You need to cook. You need to clean. And I was 27 with no food. It's like, this is too much.
Yeah.
And when I tried to leave him, he would sweeten me back up and say, okay.
Love bombing always does it, doesn't it?
Yes. I'm gonna teach you. Oh, this. And I wanted to because I love children. So I
Mhm.
see this little girl who's in need. Then he had another beautiful little girl who's actually at my house now. She was only 2 at the time. And I stayed. And despite him speaking to me in negative ways, like he used to say things to me like, I had trouble having children, and he knew that. And he was blessed with a niece that he was raising and a daughter. And he would say little things to me like, oh, you just never would know what it feels like for your child to be able to hug and hold
Oh,
you.
wow.
Or he would say, you're missing an ingredient as a woman. He
Wow.
would call me all kinds of bees and hoes, and I never left.
Mhm.
I couldn't go to the supermarket without him accusing me of cheating on him. I couldn't even go to the front door like with like I don't know lounge clothes on. He would think that I was trying to just show myself to the neighbors to entice them. It was just any little thing where I was trying to entice a man to look at me. And I would fight and say, no, like one, I was fully attracted to him, but he couldn't believe that. And I would just spin my wheels trying to convince him that this is not what I'm doing until it led to him hitting me. And the first time he hit me, um, he punched me and I actually passed out.
Wow.
And when he hit me, it was, you've been here, Nadira. That first hit is like, did this just happen?
Yeah, it's more of like because it's not like most people think that physical abuse comes first. It actually comes second because you can't just walk up to a person who is in
Right.
and just hit them in the face because it'll be a whole total different turnout. You have to be conditioned
Prime.
and primed and prepped mentally, emotionally. So when that point comes, it's like you're
Really?
right. And
Yeah.
you're like, when it happens, it's like you wake up like, what? Did this just really happen to me? Like, did I
Yeah.
just dream this or did this really happen? Yeah.
And naturally, you try to fight back, but
Right.
that pain, that hurt, the reality
Mhm.
of this person just hit me takes over.
Yes.
And I'll never forget when he hit me. I'm light skinned. So when somebody hits you in the face, light skin, even
Yeah.
brown, but I'm really light. It's you can't hide it.
You can.
And
Absolutely.
I remember he hit me, and it was around Super Bowl Sunday, and we had a party to go to, and my sister was there.
Hmm.
My sister Nettie was there,
Oh gosh.
and
Oh God.
what happened to your eye? Well, I know you didn't hit my. She was like, MF, I know if you hit my sister and this and this. And she said, what happened to your eye? And I was like, I felt I had a seizure.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, no, you didn't. You did not. Let me find out if he's doing this. And I was like, no, he didn't. And
Mm.
that was it. That was the start. And that only let him know he could do it again.
Wow.
And that was it. And then still, I had a baby at this time, my little boy. You want things to work out, you don't leave. And it just gets worse, worse, and worse. But prayer
Mm-hmm.
and God giving women motherhood and motherly nurturing instincts will pull you through. He
Mm-hmm.
pulled me through. My son is the reason I left because some people would say I stayed because of my son. And initially I did. But then I realized through this time, my son isn't going to get to know who I am
Right.
because I'm going through all of this. I can't do that to him. And my sister, Rhonda, said to me one time, I miss my sister. I miss your charisma. It's like you just are not here anymore. And it woke me up to a certain degree because I was no longer myself. And it came to my son's birthday party planning, his first birthday. His father hated my family, and he didn't want anyone. He didn't want me to have the birthday party at the church. He said, have it at our house. And I said to him, I'm not, because you don't like my family. I don't want you to ruin his birthday and kick everyone out. And he said to me, well, if you don't have it here, then I'm not coming. And I was at work, and mind you, I prayed to God every night, Lord, give me the strength to walk away. And when I walk away, give me the strength to not feel the pain of it. Just please give me the strength to not feel the pain. I was a new mom. I didn't know what to do with a kid by myself.
Right.
So I was so scared. But that day, God gave it to me because I got him. I went home. I grabbed a bag and I left and never went back. And no matter what I had to go through, sleeping on floors, I went to my sister's house. Me and my 11-month-old son slept in her guest room. Then I went to my girlfriend's and slept there to save up money to get my own place because I knew I didn't need to be there anymore.
I think people don't understand because, I've had somebody ask me, about support system. And I think if I had to talk about the importance of a support system when you're dealing with toxic relationships, is just to be there as a listening ear and be able to talk. You want to be able to, it's one thing that when you're going through it, you're already feeling bad. You're already feeling like embarrassed. You're already feeling like, less than what you're worth. I think if I had to speak to support systems, when you're dealing with, when you have somebody that's in the midst, that's in your family, that's actually, and that's dealing with abuse, you have to be really careful how you approach them and how you deal with them because they're already feeling bad. You have to make sure that that you're there to just listen, because sometimes you just want to just get it out. You want somebody, you just want to kind of just get it out so you can hear yourself hear how silly it sounds sometimes, because you don't always want people talking at you. It's different when somebody's talking to you and saying, hey, you deserve better.
Yes.
You deserve real love. You deserve, you don't have to deal with this, versus somebody saying, girl, you stupid.
Oh, yeah.
You stupid.
Oh, yeah.
If I was you, I wouldn't be doing this. Well, if I was this and I know. Okay, tell Adam to stop, okay? Okay. Still gotta be a mom anyway, right? But the reality is that I tend to lean more when I was going through it towards people who were there to support me emotionally, and people that were there to say, hey, you're going to get through this, just keep your head up, just, keep praying and believing God to open up doors for you to get through it. You're going to get through it. The more life they spoke to me, as well as the truth, because you need both. You need to tell them the truth so that they can know. Because sometimes, if a person is in a burning building, and the building is about to burn down, you got to tell them, hey, the building's on fire, But at the same time, you have to be able to say, hey, this building about to burn down. Let me show you how. Let me get you out of here. Sometimes in the beginning, you don't always feel like you want to leave. You just want somebody to talk to say, help me process what is happening to me.
Yes.
And get to a point where you value yourself. And sometimes that value isn't always made known right away because you're so engulfed into your relationship with them. You want it to work, especially when you have kids by them. You want it to work. You want things to work out because you want to keep your family together. But sometimes the reality is, it's sometimes better for your family, if you just remove yourself away from the picture, so that you can, if you decide to get together, that you both get healing. But it's a difficult thing. Talk to us about your support system. I know you said Nettie was your support system, and Nettie, because Nettie's a fighter. Nettie's gonna be like Nettie's gonna be like, what? She's coming with the bat, the shoe, not to mention mommy, but there may be a young girl that's listening right now that may have never seen this type of behavior anywhere else, and this may be her first time experiencing this. What kind of advice would you give? What kind of advice, if this was a matter of life and death, what would you say to that young girl that's right now listening, that may be listening and may be in a situation just like you? What would you say to encourage her at this moment?
That you're not stuck. That even though he may say you are, even though you may feel that you can't leave, you can. And you will be just fine. It takes courage to do it. You only can know what the other side looks like if you step over there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
As I said, I prayed. My daily and evening prayer was, Lord, let me get out of this, and please let me get out of it without the pain of it. And God showed up. It took him some time, but he showed up.
Mm-hmm.
So there are people, there's situations where men won't even let the woman breathe by herself. But get sick, go to the hospital. In those bathrooms, it says dial this number if you're being abused. There's a way. Use the resources and you will be protected. I volunteered for women's shelters. I volunteered for Winona's House in New Jersey, which is a women sexual assault trauma center. There are resources for you to use and be protected. I promise. You just got to take the first step. You got to breathe through it, and take the first step. I didn't believe I can do it, but I did. And it's the best thing that I could have done. I remember that when I left, I didn't have a place to live. I did have a job, but I didn't have a place to live. And it was at the time when Kelly Rowland had that song, It's Finally About Me, that song. And I put it on. I left. I had my 11-month-old back there. I put it on blast, and I was going down the road listening and crying, but very hopeful and motivated to leave because I knew it wasn't for me. So you just got to get it inside yourself to believe that you're going to be okay, because you will. You will. God won't let that happen to you.
And nowadays, and I always say, take time, most of the time we always return back when you don't take the time to allow God to restore and heal you emotionally. What happens is we develop a trauma bond, with the abuser. And so in my case, I was 16 years old, so you start to develop, you develop that trauma bond, and you start to feel like that's all I know, 15, 16 years, this is all I know, this is all, it starts to feel like anything outside of that starts to feel not normal, because you spend so many years normalizing the verbal abuse, normalizing the physical abuse, that you just kind of just make excuses to kind of stay there instead of taking the time. And I think what helped me is the support system. When you have people around you, that say, hey, that give you the biblical aspect. Because I think with me, my biggest challenge, and I wanted to ask this for you, how did Christianity, being a believer, play into your fight and tug of war of staying or not staying in your relationship? But before you do that, let's take a quick break.
Yes.
You can get your thoughts together and we will talk about that, because I have some interesting thoughts about that. So See you in 1 second. All right, so we are back. Thank you everybody for watching. For those that are just tuning in, we have my special guest today, Shalinda Mayner, and we are discussing what some of the things that God has brought her through and some of the victories that she has given us, the things that God has done for her as she has overcome that. But we are now talking, we are in our last segment for the evening. And I think this is important, Shalinda, because my biggest fight in staying in an abusive relationship was being a Christian, being a believer, and feeling like nobody wants to go through the big D word, nobody wants to feel like they're failure, for divorcing, being a believer and struggling with separating from an abusive relationship. And I battled with that because I felt like I love God, and I'm a Christian and I'm doing everything that I could, everything that I know to do to be possibly right as a wife, as a mother. Why, as a Christian, do I have to deal with this? And I didn't really have a lot of people that could give me an answer, because part of them, I probably felt like, because of course, the first thing is you want your marriage to last, but there are just certain things that need to be talked about, because a lot of women, especially Christian women, stay in marriages where it's extreme abuse. And one of their struggles of leaving is because they don't want to feel like they're disappointing God, or they don't want to feel like they're backsliding. Talk to us about how you felt during that time frame.
Well, I didn't have that battle because we weren't married.
Okay.
I had the battle of, I don't want my son to grow up in separate homes with us. My battle, as from a spiritual perspective, is, God, I know that I deserve better. And I began to doubt that I deserved better, because I started to look at, as a child, I attracted two abusers to do this to me sexually. Now, as a woman, the man who I had a baby with is doing the same thing. So what is it that I'm doing? So I had to really lean on God to keep my confidence and my sanity, because I really began to blame myself. I didn't know. I said, maybe it's my personality. Maybe I'm too passive. Maybe I didn't know what it was. But from a spiritual perspective, I leaned on God. I leaned on God heavily. My prayers were intentional and they were frequent. And my testimony through that is just, God showed up. And when he showed up, once again, he delivered me with a sound mind, with resilience and strength to be able to see, you deserve better. You believe it. You deserve better. So I didn't have the struggle of feeling guilty as a wife. Now I'm married and my husband is great. So I'm happy. I don't have to question that. But just as a married woman in general, there's guilt of whether you are living up to that big word of being a wife. It's a lot that goes with that.
Yeah.
Wife, mother. So if you put already on a regular basis, are you being a good wife? Are you being a good mom? Then you put abuse to it. And now you want to abandon your marriage because you're going through a little moment. What is that little moment? you know, where is that definition in the Bible? Where's the guidance to say, hey, when a man puts his hands on you, do you stay in this marriage? Right? We don't have that guidance. That's where your faith, your prayer, your guidance from God, your relationship with God comes in, because I know God gives clarity on all things.
Mm-hmm.
And if you lean on it and you listen and you humble yourself and remove yourself, God will give you the guidance that you need. So, what I do know is that when you read the Bible, those women weren't perfect, and the men weren't either, but
Mm-hmm.
they were resilient. And
Mm-hmm.
God always showed up with guidance, whether it was to scold or to guide, God showed up. So, that's where I stand with my spirituality in that relationship and in my current relationship. I don't put too much pressure on myself. I definitely lean on God. I believe in uh, let go and let God.
Mm-hmm. I think that's good. I think being on the other side of it now, you think like, oh, that took, I think if I had to go back and tell myself back then, the one thing I would say to myself is, you're going to get through this.
Yes.
You're going to get through this. And it really helped to have, I had some believers that were around me that were women that encouraged me and was very honest with me, biblically and practically. And I think that helps because we talk about the spiritual side of things when it comes to dealing with toxic relationships, but we don't talk about the practical side.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's sometimes it's the other way. You have people who only talk about the practical side and don't give you that build up spiritually too.
Guys, I think we lost her. Let's see. Hold on. While we're waiting for Nadira to come back, is there anyone that would like to elaborate on their testimonies in the discussion on Facebook? All right, I'm going back. I think she's coming back. Yes.
Sorry about that, my camera,
It's
But
okay. I started engaging Kelvin because he wanted to talk about his relationship. So I said,
okay,
this is the time for us to go into that. But he hasn't responded yet. So,
okay. Yes, Kelvin, we want to hear about your story too. Look, hey, even though we're talking to women, we're not closed to helping anybody that needs
mhm,
help. This is a really, if everything that we talked about helps you too and you're a male,
yes.
um, hey, there's no restriction on help. I think for me, one of the things I struggle with is going into the shelters because in my mind, I was so afraid of being in the midst of strangers and feeling
Mhm.
like, and people will say, well, why didn't you go to your family? Why didn't you go to your family? It's not that your family is not there to support you, but sometimes you need a different environment in order
Absolutely.
to process without the I told you so's, without the, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. You need that time to kind of
Yes.
to process.
Mhm.
And I thank God for, the two shelters that I was at, because it gave me time to kind of look at things and develop a perspective. Um, one, healthy, and that it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're used to being strong, and you want to be strong for your kids, and you want to be strong for
Yeah.
everybody else, except, and there's sometimes you just don't want to be strong. Sometimes you want to just cry and get it out. So I'm grateful for the opportunity and the space to be able to do that in a safe place.
Right. Right.
So I and it was help. I look back and I think like, wow, I've grown so much, and that's why I'm so passionate about helping other women to be
Mhm.
get through the process. Because when I hear people talk about abuse, I don't see people talk about it in depth. And that's because some people are not always comfortable with
Mhm.
sharing, and I get that. But my prayer is that each of us that go through it, that we encourage somebody else that
Yeah.
may be facing it, that it will give them practical help, things that they can do that are tangible. That's
Mhm.
not just fluff, but tangible
Mhm.
things that they can take home and say, you know what? I realize I don't have to deal with this, and I have to do something to increase my self-worth. Get in the presence of God and allow God to fill me, because pulling somebody out of a relationship before you get to, when I think about some people wanting to pull me out before I was mentally ready,
Mhm.
couldn't get me out because I'll go back. But the
Yep.
more I started to gain strength emotionally, and I started to get encouraged
Yep.
and turn inside, it became
Mhm.
a lot easier to strategize,
Absolutely.
you know.
The
So,
saying of when a woman's fed up is true.
mhm,
It's so true. People
mhm,
get frustrated because you don't move in their time, you know.
right,
But one thing, and this is for people that know people in a woman or a man in abusive relationships, don't get frustrated. Don't give up. Don't have the attitude of, well, I tried to tell her and she didn't leave, so whatever happens to her good.
right,
Don't
right,
do that, because the time will come, and the time will come when they consistently see you show up for them. When
right.
they get to that point to say, I'm done, who do
Mhm.
you think they're going to?
Yep,
You.
they're gonna go to
So
you.
my support was my mom, my sisters, my friends. They knew it. It hurt them to see it.
Yeah,
They were so worried about me.
yeah.
And I reassured them, like, it's believe me, I don't think I'm to the point of life or death.
Mhm.
If they felt he was going to weaken me so much emotionally and mentally that he was going to drive me crazy,
Mm.
and they they would just mention that you got to take care of yourself, you got to do this. But let me tell you, if I didn't show up, if they couldn't get to me, if they called me and didn't answer that phone, they was bringing doors down. And
Yeah.
he knew that. They abusers need to see those.
Yes, yes. They need to know that you have a support system.
They need to know it. If you push your support system away, then you give them free reign to do whatever. But he knew that there was certain amount of information I would give, and there was a certain amount that I wouldn't. But it was but so far he would go, because he knew those people were around. So don't push your support system away, and support system, don't leave that person that needs you through frustration, because your presence makes a difference even when you feel like it doesn't.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Shalinda, it has been a blessing hearing your testimony and seeing all the wonderful things that God has brought you through. You've been through a really bad relationship, but you gained a beautiful son, and God has blessed you with a relationship where where
Mhm.
you're getting everything you deserved. I
Absolutely.
loved watching your wedding pictures. You look so beautiful. My prayer for you is that you will continue to allow God to use you, and that you allow God to continue to allow you to be transparent, so that other women can glean from you and learn from you. You are such an example to so many people. I watched you even as a teenager grow up, and you always was the stand-up one. You like that. It's funny because when I think about Preach, I think about you because Preach just reminds me of you. She sounds like you when she talks. You have such resilience and so much to offer. I know that God's going to use you in a mighty way. Do you have any final words before we leave and end the broadcast that you want to share with us?
I just want to say thank you for listening, and I hope that this conversation did a true sisterhood check-in, and those that are going through something, you're not alone. And ShalindaMaynard.com, reach out. I'm here to listen, talk, and help you through anything you need to be helped through. I have a lot of resources for women that are in abusive relationships, and also Nadira does too. And then finally, it's just about resilience. When you walk through it, go through it, and go through it with a clean, healthy heart, and learn to forgive, because God will work it out for you. God will show up for you. Lean on that and believe in it. And that's it. God bless you guys.
Well, thank you guys again for joining us on Sisterhood Check-In. We are here every Friday from 10 p.m. until whenever God tells us to stop or till one of us gets sleepy. We appreciate you. Make sure that you go to Shalinda's website, ShalindaMaynard.com, and check out her resources. Also, I have at the bottom of the screen, if you haven't purchased my book yet, What Happened to Me? How Did I Get Here? Make sure you go to bit.ly/signed by Nadira and get your copy. And for those of you that have purchased my book, please send me a picture of you with the book. I would love to be able to use that to put that on my website. So until next time, I pray that God will bless you and you guys have a wonderful weekend. All right, Shalinda, thank you. Have a good weekend, everybody.